Coming up on UGTV, Standing Committee Meetings of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas. We begin with a meeting of the Public Works and Safety Standing Committee. This will be followed by the Administration and Human Services Standing Committee.
Good evening. We're all assembled. I'm going to call our meeting of Public Works and Safety Standing Committee to order. And we want to welcome everyone to the meeting. Public comment is welcome. Anyone wishing to speak on any item on the Standing Committee agenda is welcome to do so when that item's up for discussion. We would have you come forward to the microphone and be recognized and state your name for accurate recording purposes. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Roll call. Groneman. Here. Philbrook.
Here.
Markley.
Here.
Payne. Here. Johnson.
Here.
Bynum.
Here. There's one revision on tonight's agenda. It's a resolution submitted for item 6, and the verbiage for that item's been added, changed, and noted on your blue sheet in your packet. And there are no minutes to approve this month because we did not have a December meeting. And proceeding to the regular agenda, we have 7 items tonight on our Public Works and Safety agenda. Item 1 is a resolution authorizing a survey of lands for Lombardi Drive. And who all do we have present here to present? We've got a lot of people over there.
Good evening, James Bain,
Hi.
Unified Government Legal Department. And alongside of me is Chris Finger, the engineer on the project.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Bain.
You all have a map showing the area of the project for the relocation and repair of sanitary sewers. Available for questions.
Is there anyone with a question? We've got a motion to approve and a second. Could I have roll call on the motion, please?
Roll call. Groneman. Aye. Philbrook.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Payne. Aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye. That motion carries. Thank you. The next item, item number 2, is a resolution approving an interlocal agreement with our KCK Public Schools. Ms. Ailig.
This is an agreement that we drafted to facilitate the OK program, which provides mentorship in USD 500 public schools. Essentially, that's an ongoing program. Both parties are happy with the way it's going. The school district felt like they wanted something in writing about how we would handle the exchange of sensitive student information like grades and attendance, and that's what this contract is for.
Move for approval.
Got a motion and a second on this item. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Groneman. Philbrook.
Aye.
Markling.
Aye.
Kane. Johnson.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye, and that motion carries, thanks. Next item is a resolution authorizing an agreement with Fire District 1 in Leavenworth County for automatic aid. We've got Katie Devlin and Chief Callahan here with the fire department.
Are we starting? So this is continuation of the auto aid agreement. We met with Commissioner Kane, and I guess we're here to get it approved. It's exactly as it was written the last time we spoke.
We had a good conversation and understanding, and the agreement is as was presented to us.
That's correct.
Any questions from anyone, Commissioner? We're good, all right.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Could I have roll call?
Roll call, Groneman. Philbrook.
Aye.
Markling.
Aye.
Kane. Johnson.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye, thank you, that motion carries. Next item is also relating to the fire department. This is an ordinance relating to temporary fireworks with retail establishments, and we have Fire Marshal Droppelman joining us at the front table here. Okay, go right ahead, whichever one of you wants to just present briefly.
Okay, there's 4 changes to the current ordinance. I believe you've got them in front of you there. The first one deals with the number of extinguishers. The original ordinance had 3 for permanent structures, 4 for tents. We just evened that out, 4 across the board, so there's no confusion. The international fire codes and national fire codes allow leniency for me to determine which is which, how many we need, and it's just simpler if we have 4 all the way across the board to eliminate confusion. So we did that. The second one, the 20-foot between structures. When we made amendments last year, somehow that number got reduced to 10. I think we made quite a few changes and there was a little mishap. That 20 feet is necessary. That's the fire egress lane that's meant to be maintained around buildings and structures. So we had to put that back to 20 from 10. Okay. The third one is a mandatory, well, it's not mandatory. It's specifying that when these retailers purchase their product, that it's delivered actually to the tent site. I couldn't find it anywhere in the ordinance before. We had some issues last year where products were being delivered to buildings that we didn't know about, and even the Department of Transportation specifies you put more than 1,000 pounds of that in a vehicle. It has to be placarded. The driver has to be CDL and hazmat approved to be able to do that, and these distributors already have that. Our local retailers probably don't, so that's in there. And then the fourth one, the detailed inventory list. We required an inventory list, but we wanted to make sure it was detailed. It makes it a lot easier for me. I have a couple of weeks to look these over to make sure that nothing on the list is one of the banned products. They constantly change these, the distributors and manufacturers, the names of them, the descriptions, and it kind of helps out the retailer that they don't get a shipment of stuff they can't sell and can't return, has to be destroyed. So hopefully that'll take care of that problem also.
I just have a question on the very last one, the inventory list.
Yes.
Are you checking that prior to the stand opening?
Yes, I do. I go through those lists to make sure I don't see any products that they're not supposed to sell, and then when they get future shipments, if they have a a good week or whatever, and they get more, they're required to send that also in to make sure that they're only selling the stuff they're allowed to.
Okay. Anyone else question or Commissioner Kane?
So they get their first shipment, and then they send you what they got. You go out there and you have to
Before they even order a shipment, I think they all place an order, and they send me their inventory list of what they've ordered, and then I go through there do some Google searches or whatever to make sure if I don't recognize certain products' names, I'll look them up and make sure that it's something that's allowed to be sold in our city. The additional orders, I have to kind of scramble to do. They'll either drop them off at my office or email or fax them to me, and then I'll hurry up and look them over as quick as I can.
You're the only person that does that?
Yes.
How many stands are there, though?
Last year there was 47, I think, 40, somewhere like that, yeah.
A lot. You need any help?
The month leading up to July 4th is no fun, but
Yeah, it's a long.
we all rest after that.
All right, other questions or concerns? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and we're gonna approve all 4 of the changes with one motion, correct? Yes. All right, roll call, please.
Roll call, Groneman. Aye. Philbrook,
Aye.
Markley. Aye. Kane. Aye. Johnson. Bynum.
Aye, and that carries. Thank you. Yes.
So I know you need help. Is it possible for maybe 1 or 2 people to kind of be sidelined to help you with that for that short period of time? You think that might be a possibility?
Occasionally I'll have one of my investigators maybe help me out, but the more you look at it, the more my first year or two doing it, took me a long time, and now you recognize certain names, certain things like that, and it's a little quicker.
Right, but just a statement and a comment for you and the Supreme Being.
I appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thank you.
All right, anything else on that? Okay, well, thank you both very much. Item number 5, we are moving right along. You'd think there was a basketball game or something. This is an ordinance amending maximum speed limits for residential and park areas, and we have Jeff Fisher, our Director of Public Works.
Thank you. Good evening. The current code establishes speed limits in residential areas at 30 miles per hour. Recommendation is to simply adjust that down to 25 miles per hour and to include 20-mile-per-hour zones in parks. I'll take any questions.
Second.
Yes, sir.
I think I asked this the last time. What is considered an urban area versus a residential area? I think I saw that in this information here.
That is in there, Commissioner, and
Is it in there or no? It's not in
it is in there. Urban district, 30 miles per hour. That is state statute, if I recall.
Just want to know how it's defined.
Traffic engineer may be able to help us with that.
Okay.
Come all the way up, man.
Okay.
Should be. It's,
Okay. Oh, that language comes from the state statute, and Wyandotte County is considered entirely as an urban area, because when you consider the entire state, the rural will be anything west of us, and then us, we're pretty much, Kansas City, most of us, it's an urban area.
everything from First Street all the way out to how far?
K7.
Considered urban, whatever Commissioner Kane was alluding to. I'm not sure what he's talking about.
Yeah. I mean, certainly we have some areas that are more rural in nature as a transportation description on that, but most of our area is in an urban territory.
Very good. Thank you.
Did someone help me? Did we have a motion and a second?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes.
I just want to share with folks that I've had feedback on both sides. One is, yes, they're very happy that it's being reduced to 25, but I also had some feedback that they don't understand why we would want to reduce it to 25. So as usual, whichever you decide, is probably going to be wrong, but that's just the way it is.
All right, so we have a motion and a second on the change, so could I have roll call?
Roll call, Groneman. Aye. Philbrook,
Aye.
Markley. Aye. Kane. Aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye. And that carries, thank you.
you.
All right, next is a resolution amending prior authorization for Kaw River Bank stabilization at Turkey Creek. And we have our CFO, Kathleen Von Atchen, and also Mr. Fisher.
Thank you. Our CFO is going to take a few minutes to describe funding, and then the county engineer is going to walk through the scope of the project and the urgency.
Okay, thanks.
So, as you pointed out earlier, the agenda right now has some language of the project as we contemplated it several weeks ago, but there was a blue sheet which revised that information, so we're going to speak towards the revised resolution that was adopted, or that was submitted for your adoption. So as you know, back in at the end of July, you all adopted Resolution 52-18 that listed all of the capital projects in the CMIP for 2018-2023. And within that was a stormwater project called Turkey Creek Stabilization, and it was funded at the level of $5 million. The resolution before you would increase that project authorization to $10 million. It doesn't necessarily change the scope or the language of the scope, so it still is construction, inspection, and repair and restoration of the Kaw River Bank adjacent to the Turkey Creek outfall into the Kaw River, and any other additional work. The resolution also expresses our intent to issue temporary notes, which would be which we plan to take before the ED&F committee next Monday, and plan to push forward and combine with some other project financing we're doing in the coming 6 weeks. So in order for the Public Works Department to have all the funds they need. And by the way, this resolution would allows for the reimbursement of any expenses that may have been made or as of 60 days prior to the date of this resolution, once the commission adopts it with your permission. Right now, I'd like to pass the mantle over to Troy Shaw, our UG engineer, who's going to talk more about why the project is more money and the need for it.
But Mr. Shaw, before you present on the technical issues, I want to go back to the dollars for a minute.
Okay.
Because the blue sheet says we're going to amend the CMIP.
Yes.
But in the packet, it says that the request is an additional $8 million.
Yeah. So
you just said from $5 million to $10 million.
That's right. Correct. So what's in the agenda is not correct. The dollar amounts that are published in the agenda are not correct, because since the agenda was published, we got additional information.
Okay.
So the total project is now $10 million,
Great.
Of which we only have project authorization for 5 at the moment. So we need an additional $5 million.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Troy.
I'm going to give a quick background, very quick, because I think a lot of us have heard this before. In 2017, we had the rains back to back to back in the summer of 2017. After that series of rains, we had a failure on the wing wall of Turkey Creek, which you can see the green dot on there is where the failure is at, and that's the outlet of Turkey Creek into the Kansas River. So at that time, we applied for FEMA funding. We were denied FEMA funding, and we're currently in an appeals process for that as well. So just to let you know about that. Part of the issue with this was that the wing wall did not fail until the river receded. So it took a little time after the events for it to actually fail, because once the river level went down, there's nothing holding the wall back, and it went with everything else. So that's part of the FEMA funding the reimbursement request from FEMA, so that's why we're appealing the process. So since then, we obviously have been monitoring it, and here is what it looked like the day that it failed. As you can see, it's already pretty close to the BNSF tracks that are sitting there. Currently, there is, it's not working, but you can kind of see the cone line. Now we can see depressions in the ground around where those cones are at, so it's getting even closer. This hole's been filled with rock temporarily, and we actually currently have a contractor down there working on the outlet right now. We did the CMAR process, construction manager at risk, to get someone on board. And that's where the difference in money came from as well. Our original estimate was $5 million. It was from the surface. We had no clue what was down there. We were guessing that the break was much higher up on the wall than it actually was. Once they got down there, the river went down. This winter, the contractor get down, did borings. It determined out that it was much deeper with the repair necessary. So that's where the extra cost came from. On the back of your sheet, and I'll get to it in a minute. I can start right now. We have an estimate from our CMAR contractor. So this is for the downstream wind wall. This is the one that's broken. We have a $10 million project. Have an estimate for the upstream wind wall. While we're there, it's gonna fail. I don't know when. It could be tomorrow. It could be in 5 years, but it will fail as well. It was built in 1917 or 1910 with this. 1917 with the tunnel at the same time, hadn't been touched since. So, yeah. So while we're there, it makes sense to do them both. Otherwise, we're back to $10 million again to redo this in a few years if we get to that point. So, or I guess $8 million again. So what we're asking for is an additional $5 million to get down there. Right now, we have a contractor that's out there working. With the first $5 million, we've basically broke up their work into two phases, phase 1 and phase 2. We've authorized them for phase 1, which basically gets them down into the river to do the work that they're doing right now before the river level comes up, so they can't get to that work. If we don't approve the additional $5 million or find something for additional work, we risk that work that they do disappearing when the river level does come up, and we also risk additional issues with the railroad. If something happens, the railroad tracks go. We've been told by BNSF that potential fines of $1 million a day because that's a main line that it shuts down. So we're really need to get the work done, and that's why we went through the whole CMAR process. There's also, I mentioned that we have the FEMA. We're still in the appeal process for FEMA funding. We've also we're looking at funding from KCMO as well with the original tunnel agreement and how that all fits in. So we'll be pursuing that as well. So there's options to get some of this money back as well as we move forward. I think that's all I have, unless you have any questions. Give us a breakdown and feel free to ask any questions.
Who's the contractor?
Contractor is, I'll think of it in a minute. And no.
So the key point here is that that this is planned to be paid for through debt financing and repaid through sewer or storm water revenues. So, not property tax revenues.
Mm-hmm. Did you have the contractor name?
Yeah, it's ESI is the contractor. Yeah, I just blanked, but yes. Yeah.
All right. Other questions, comments on this item? It has to be done. If not, I'll accept a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Could I have roll call, please?
Roll call, Groneman. Aye. Philbrook.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Kane. Aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Painful, but must be done. We are at our last item on this agenda, and it is an update on our juvenile justice project. And we have John Kelly and the architecture team and the construction team. I can probably give this update, John, if you want me to, since I work right across the street from this project. Big. policy project.
Yes, first off, well, thanks for having us tonight. We're here. We're going to give a little presentation. I'm going to ask our team to introduce themselves real quick.
Gwen Gigas with Trainer HL.
Lynn Newkirk, Newkirk Novak.
Scott Mead, Newkirk Novak.
All right.
So we're going to give you a few slides, and then also we have a pretty cool video that we had some help from Dave Reno and our office, that we got a drone video showing how the project is coming along. So we plan to use the drone video for future projects like the fire station and the grocery store project, so we're excited. And also tonight I wanted to make note that through the last probably 6 months with this particular project, there was some funding concerns with getting the third floor where the courts would be, the courtrooms for the juvenile will be completed in totality. So we're excited to make sure that everybody was kind of worried how that would look, and with finance and budget and the county administrator's office, we came to a point where we were able to get the project completely done. So we're excited, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Scott, and he'll go through the presentation.
So the first photos are of the 8th and Taromie, the parking lot behind Memorial Hall. So to the left, you can see the before photos. We started in July, and to the right is the after photos. Finished and turned the parking lot over to the Unified Government on December 13th. So we still have a few punch list items to go. As soon as the weather allows, we'll get those wrapped up. But that is the parking lot. The next photos are the building. So to the left, you can see we started September 2018, and then currently to the right in February, where we are right now. This photo was taken a few weeks ago, but as of right now, on the first section of structural steel, we are up to the 3rd floor. So we're working diligently on the structural steel, and we should have that completed by the 1st of April. As soon as that's completed, we'll start with the exterior of the building, and then by October, we should have that wrapped up, and we'll start the finishes of the building and turn the building over March of 2020. And just the next one, you can see to the left, some of the steel erection. They're going quick, because that was just a week ago, and they're already up to the 3rd floor. And then to the right, some of the sleeping cells masonry, you can see that it's ongoing as of right now. And then if there's no other items, we can jump to the video.
So that was our presentation. I don't know if anybody has any questions, but like I said, with that type of footage that we just saw there, we hope to bring that to you guys for our future projects to come. Kind of gives a different view of how that project looks. And I mean, if you guys were to drive by here, you know, in the next day or so to look at the project, just from the time that video was shot, which was I think a week and a half ago we had that done, it's just drastically changing. So we're going to try to bring that, as this project at such a bigger scale, we might do 1 to 2 more videos like that. But like I said, it's something that we plan on doing with other projects to kind of show you guys firsthand on how things look.
Thank you. Commissioner Philbrook.
Well, I want to thank Dan Reno. He's a kind of a very progressive young man, and I appreciate his look at things, his viewpoint. And so, yes, we need to utilize him working his little fanny off. Having said that, I really do appreciate the fact that you managed to come in on budget and get that 3rd floor done for the judicial folks, because that was one of the whole points of having that particular facility, was so we didn't walk them across the open area, that they were seen within the same structure. So thank you very much for managing to pull that together, however you did that. I'm not asking questions, but thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Other questions or comments on the project? It is fascinating to watch. And I am literally directly across the street. And so I'm in the middle of the construction zone every day. And I don't know, it's just kind of mesmerizing to see the project go up. And I know that, you know, it creates a little headache here and there, but I know those headaches will be over someday. And it's wonderful to have the new parking open. In addition, that is also looking very nice. So, anything else from anybody? All right. Thank you.
I will just note real quick, this is our first CMR project that we've done for our organization. Newkirk Novak and working with Trainer's been a great team, so I'm really pleased with all the efforts that everybody's been put into this project, and so far it's been pretty smooth. So
It really has.
construction manager at risk. All right, thank you.
So we appreciate you coming and being here tonight. So, and we'll look forward to more updates. And that is every item on our agenda. So this particular meeting is concluded, and we thank everyone for attending. This meeting's adjourned, and we'll move straight into Administration and Human Services.
When the item is up for discussion, you'll have 3 minutes. Come forward to a microphone and please use our microphones, staff and commissioners. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call. Philbrook,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Kane, Bynum,
Here.
Markley.
Here. There are no minutes to approve this month since our December meeting was canceled, so we'll move right along to our first item, which is an ordinance regarding open burn prohibition. I'll recognize Assistant Counsel Daniel Kuhn, and it looks like Mr. Droppelmeyer is still available. It's his night. Welcome. Go right ahead.
Okay, so this amendment to the open burning for air quality, I think you guys have all had constituents call you complaining about different types of problems with burning in the city. They usually get forwarded to me, and the fire code only allows me to handle certain parts of that, dealing with the safety portion of it, not the air pollution, air quality of it. So I tried to address some last year, and legal and the municipal court said, well, you're not really on that ordinance to be able to enforce it. So this is allowing myself, the fire investigators, the inspectors to be able to issue municipal summonses. Usually we're out there 24/7. We can remediate the problem fairly quickly, whereas air quality would maybe wait till the following Monday. Everybody's gone, they're tough to locate. So since we're already out there, let us take care of it rather quickly than delay it. So it's just adding the language that allows the fire department to write summonses from there.
Questions? If not, I'll take a motion. We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Philbrook.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Finan.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye. All right, item number 2 is an ordinance incorporating language from the 2018 International Fire Code. We have the same team presenting.
Okay, so we're currently, all the cities, our whole city's under the 2012 codes. We're working to try and get under the 18s, but it looks like it's not going to happen until the end of this year, maybe even early 2019. Back in 2015, the International Fire Code put in wording that allowed the fire marshal or the authority having jurisdiction the ability to mandate reporting of fire protection systems directly to him. Currently, the way it works now, companies go in and they inspect fire protection systems, sprinkler systems, commercial hoods, hood cleanings, private fire mains, and they just take that information, they stick a tag on the system, and we may run across it during our inspections of those buildings later on. If it's mandated that they have to report that to me, we know what's going on right then. Once again, I don't have the inspectors to handle the 4,000 plus buildings on an annual basis. And these companies that kind of brought this program together, this compliance reporting, they were pretty smart. I think it's a bunch of ex-inspectors that did it. It cost absolutely nothing for the city for us to contract with one. They do the work of several inspectors. They compile a database that they have to allow me access to. They run across the building where maybe a fire sprinkler system's down or an alarm system. It sends me an immediate email so we can go make a site visit then. This code amendment is just to kind of take care of us delayed in the adoption of the 2018 codes. So, any questions on that?
Commissioner Philbrook?
So, for instance, let's say I have a little business and I'm supposed to have 4 extinguishers, and they're supposed to be looked at, and the little tag sign that they were looked at and all that. Normally, you guys, if you chose, you could come in, take a look, and tell me, you know, if I had any infractions, if I'd been up to date, that sort of thing. But what you're saying now, I just want to make sure I understand that that person that came in to do that inspection of my extinguishers and whatever else I'm supposed to be doing, puts that in their own database, and if it doesn't meet criteria, then it bounces to you. So if I have an extinguisher or 2 that's out of date or whatever, and I don't replace them, you know it. You can come out and...
That's correct.
Does it also leave a space in there, like for instance, you're gonna get it fixed within a certain time, and then they come back out and inspect it, and then, you know what I'm saying, or are you having to do
Now
that?
that's strictly up to us as a department, myself. I get to pick and choose what systems I want them to report to me. There's probably 10 or 12 different fire protection systems. We can have them do all of them or a certain amount. I've been to several presentations from these companies that are out there, and they've brought back some reports where they've kind of socked it to the community pretty heavy at first. The commissioners may get complaints about that. Hey, you know, this is going on. So we plan on phasing this in fairly slowly, mainly the basic systems, and then adding more and more to it. We don't have a fine system like a lot of cities do, and I think a lot of them are getting hit with the big fines right off the bat, which created most of the complaints. We don't have that. We're just going to go and make sure that they do that.
So having said that, then it sounds like putting together a plan to,
Yes.
over how much time period you're gonna spend in getting the whole thing in place. Are you in the infancy stages of that, or?
We're in the early stages. Daniel's has to go through the agreement with the company that we choose. Then we, like I said, we provide them our letterhead, provide them which systems that they're going to have to report to us. And even if they pass, they still report to us. It's a web-based platform that myself and the inspectors all have access to. We can look at it anytime. They also help us compile a database that really we don't have a very good complete database in the fire prevention unit to show all these systems, and they'll go out and get them. What they do is they contract with these inspection companies, and when these inspection companies do an inspection by city law now, they have to report it to this company, whatever they do.
Okay.
Where they make their fees is they charge the inspection companies a small fee to report that every year.
Okay.
And it's up to that company whether or not they want to pass it on to the business owner. Typically they don't, because they're actually doing more inspections because now it's mandatory.
Well, so I'm gonna make a request. So once you figure out exactly how you're gonna do it, or put it into, into effect, if you could come back and give us a little bit better feeling for the timeline and how you're planning on it.
Right. The sooner this ordinance passes, the sooner we can get the contract signed. It takes probably 2 months to get the whole thing up and running. Kansas City, Missouri, I believe, signed back in late December, early January, and they still haven't fully implemented it yet. It's a process. There's a big database that has to be compiled, which this is a really good time for us because we're in the process of purchasing a new software database for inspections to make sure we've got a understanding of what we've got out there and what we need to do, and the two systems will tie in together and work with each other.
Well, I appreciate your efforts and your work on trying to get this stuff lined out, because I know it's no small job. Having said that, I move that we approve.
Second.
If there are no other questions from commissioners, we have a motion and a second. I will take roll call.
Roll call. Philbrook.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Bynum.
Aye.
Markling.
Aye. Thank you both. Item number 3 is a presentation regarding the Health Department's new electronic medical record. We have Julianne Van Loo here to present.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Julianne Van Loo. I run planning and operations in the Health Department, and this is Leslie Reynoso with the Knowledge Department. We're just going to give you a quick update this evening. How do I... that? In case it wasn't on your radar, the very exciting project that the Health Department is undertaking this year is migrating to a new electronic medical record. So we're going to give you an update on the process to date and kind of our timeline for moving forward. So to give you a little bit of context, about 15 years ago, the Health Department first moved from paper-based medical records to an electronic medical record platform. We've been using this ever since then. We've gone through various upgrades, but we were alerted about a year and a half ago that our current product was being sunset this coming July, meaning obviously that we need to migrate to a new system. So we kind of undertook that process about 18 months ago. It actually is a very good thing that's happening because our current system has several flaws, a few of which include the fact that it has no interoperability, so we're unable to send data electronically from our current system to, say, KDHE's electronic systems and the different reporting requirements that they have. Our current system also only has clinical modules, and the Health Department does work that's beyond the clinical scope. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. And it's also just very difficult to create reports. So we're having a heck of a time for supervisors in the clinic, for example, to get numbers of clients seen this week or different diagnoses we've seen. So it's hard to do some kind of routine monitoring and maintenance along the way when we can't create reports kind of as we need them. So as we were kind of alerted that this sunsetting was going to happen this coming July, we started talking to other health departments in Kansas, and we came to the conclusion that it would be in our best interest as well as theirs to go through this process together. So some of these other health departments were also on Insight, our current system. Some of them are not on any electronic medical record, but we've gone through the entire vendor selection and we'll go through the implementation process at the same time. So some of the benefits to doing this together, one is a decrease in cost. So bringing 5 of us on as new clients for this vendor gave us a bit of a cost decrease. There's also strength in numbers, particularly in terms of reporting requirements. So Kansas Department of Health and Environment has a lot of requirements in terms of the data we need to provide. So us being on the same system together gives us some weight when they're asking us for our input on the kind of data that we would need to report to them. It also allows us to begin to standardize our care. So if many of you have been to the doctor over the past year, when you go to any particular clinic, there's no necessarily any rules in terms of what questions they ask you or what screenings you receive. It's the same with health departments. So we're kind of taking this as an opportunity for us and our fellow health departments to make sure that we're doing the appropriate screenings, asking the right questions, providing the appropriate level of care for all of our clients. And then what that does is that gives us a robust pool of data across the 5 counties to look at how we're doing compared to one another and to look at our populations combined. So the product that we have chosen is CDP's Easy EMR-X. I do not love that name, but it is what it is. What we love about this product, though, is that it was built for health departments. So health departments' work is very specific. It's different than if you go to a private clinic or an FQHC or something like that. We have a very specific scope of work, and this particular product has been implemented in over 100 health departments across the country, so we feel very confident in that. It also has several different goals beyond just the quality of care, including patient-centeredness, communication, education. These are all things that are very important to us. And then lastly, which I already touched on, is the interoperability piece. So they're going to be able to create interfaces with us directly with KDHE and the several systems so that we can just send them data electronically immediately. This will save us dozens of hours every month in exporting the information, analyzing it, and putting it in new systems. So we're going to save a lot of time. A few other benefits from this system: it's web-based, which is going to be helpful. It has the capability for mobile use, so we can look at things like iPads and that sort of thing actually in the exam room. There are clinical care plans and case management specifically for public health, like I mentioned. There's a patient portal opportunity, so if you've ever been to the doctor's office and you're given a login to go look at your billing statement or your labs, there's the opportunity for us to do that as a health department, which we've never done before. There's an environmental health and child care licensing module. So currently, for example, in our air quality department, we store air quality monitoring information into kind of an ad hoc homegrown system that we created. This will allow us to put that information into this same platform, which will be great. We'll be able to integrate our lab information, including documenting, ordering, and entering results of labs much more cohesively with the rest of the patient medical record. A more robust health data reporting system, and a much more, we hope, efficient billing system. So we know with our current system, it is not as efficient as it should be, and there's money being left on the table. So we're hoping to see increased revenues. So throughout this process, I mentioned that 5-county consortium. Just to give you kind of a little bit more of a picture, the unified government elected to kind of take on a leadership role of this 5-county consortium. And we did this essentially to kind of be in the driver's seat to allow us to be a major decision maker as this process unfolded. So this leadership includes health department staff, knowledge department folks, and then point people from all of the other 4 health departments, but they have actually provided about $10,000 apiece for all of the work that the knowledge and health department are taking on our end. So we're not doing it for free. They're kind of putting some skin in the game as well. To kind of wrap us up here, Leslie's going to take us through a quick timeline over the next coming months and how the project will unfold.
Hey, good evening. As she said, my name is Leslie Reynoso, and I am the lead project manager for the 5 counties based here in Wyandotte. Just a real quick overview, high level. As we're moving through February and January, we were collecting information. So as we move into March, we're starting to take that information and actually do things with it. And it's actually not us that's doing that, it's CDP. They've laid out a plan with target dates, et cetera, for us. March is mostly for form development and for the organization and setup of the software for each of the 5 counties. Even though we are together, we're still separate. So we'll each have our own systems. We don't all participate in the same programs. So like Wyandotte will have a certain list of programs, Shawnee will have a certain list of programs, et cetera. So that all will happen this month and into next month. The data conversion for those that are currently on an Insight or another system will finalize most of that in the month of April. The data has already been submitted and they're reviewing that as we go through the month of March. And the hope is that they will be able to provide a converted set of data that we can then test against in April, giving us a couple of months leeway if we find any issues with that data conversion. In May, we are working to finalize the integration. We have currently 9 third-party, mostly labs or government offices that we are looking to electronically interface with so that we don't have to pull those reports and do that in a manual sense, saving a lot of time and effort and accuracy. The plan is to have most of that completed by the end of May. I do know one right now due to an upgrade on their side that will be a little bit longer than that, but it'll be kind of business as usual for the counties up to that point. In June, we go live, and in fact, due to a contract update, we're at the Lawrence Douglas County group is actually going to go live at the end of May. They will go first. And then the other 4 counties will go live and do their training in June. The goal is to have everything in place by the end of June so that we can do the fiscal submission for all of those counties to the health department electronically versus filling out the paperwork and doing that in a manual fashion. And then follow up and any updates or et cetera beyond that.
That's pretty much it. Any questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, so other than each individual health department and the individual or the patient that you're taking care of, does anybody else have access to this data?
To the information in the electronic medical record? Absolutely not, no.
I just wanted to make sure that it was basically a closed system within each group.
Oh, entirely closed, so no. We can elect each of the 5 counties to send information back and forth to one another. It would be de-identified information anyway. We are bound by HIPAA privacy and protection regulations, so absolutely.
All right, just making it plain to folks in TV land.
I appreciate that.
We all get concerned that sometimes our health records are available to other folks, and
sure.
not
Well,
so.
it's not available outside, nor is it available to internal health department staff unless it's actually your client that you're seeing. So it's kept very secure.
Thank you very much for that information.
When it comes to our leadership, the UG leadership, can you kind of describe what that leadership is? I mean, are we doing, how is that set up?
So Leslie meets every week, well, they're out in California, but has a teleconference every week with our vendor, and then a separate teleconference with the other 4 county leaders. So he kind of does the administration leaderships, make sure that things are happening on time. But the point person in each of those other health departments is the one responsible for, say, collecting the forms within Johnson County or within Riley County. So they're taking care of their own stuff, but what Leslie's doing is kind of keeping the whole herd moving in the same direction. That makes sense.
And then when you talk about the fact that we have a decrease in cost, is there any estimation of what that might be in terms of dollars?
Oh, I can't tell you what the bid would have been if we went in on our own. Sorry.
So it's decreasing cost relative to the fact that it's split out between 5 different municipalities.
Right.
Versus us doing it on our own.
Exactly, yes.
Got it.
It's about a $155,000 project to migrate onto the platform, and the monthly cost is a little over $9,000 in maintenance fees.
Okay, Great, thank you.
Commissioner, I'll just add, the part of that is that there's a base build, excuse me, to the software that accounts for the, that's similar across all the counties, and then there are sort of different different ways to configure each one a little bit, but the savings comes from the vendor being able to do a main build for all the counties together, and that's really, I think, where you see a lot of the savings. And then, as she said, there's also savings in terms of cost avoidance by digitizing stuff that's done, on a paper basis today.
Thank you.
Give your name, please.
Some of the savings is also because, I'm sorry, I'm Terry Garrison. I'm the Deputy Director at the Health Department. Some of the interoperability that Julianne spoke of with accessing things at KDHE, all 5 health departments have to access that. So as Alan said, the build for those interoperability abilities was spread across all 5 counties instead of us having to pay for all of it.
Got it. Thank you.
Any others? Okay. That item was for information only. Thank you, Julianne and Leslie, for being here. Our last item is an update on our 2018 311 Contact Center. I'll recognize Alan Howes, our Chief Knowledge Officer and Acting Assistant County Administrator. It looks like Mr. Deichler is also approaching, so I'll let Alan introduce his team.
All right, good evening, Commissioners, and we have for you this evening an update on 311 and its activities in 2018. This in part follows from a update that happened last month, where you heard from the Treasury team about their use of the MyWICO mobile app, and what you'll see here tonight is the full scope of 311, which includes contacts from the phone, as well as online submissions and the use of the mobile app. So our director, Brett Deichler, will take you through the overall kind of the activities in 311 and then focus on a couple of areas that are particular interest potentially to the commission around trash and refuse and street lights. And then we'll talk a little bit about the MyWICO application and then what's coming up in 2019. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brett.
Good evening, everyone. As Alan alluded, I'd like to talk a little bit just about our 2018 numbers as well and kind of show you what paths we've traveled this year. There's been a lot of important things we've done down there. I think the improvements are going to probably really stand out with what we show tonight. But referencing our strategic plan, it's it's very critical that we follow what's been put out there. 301 technically supports 3 different areas on this. We cross both sides of the wheel here, but looking at the multiple goals, we obviously try to help in reducing blight with some of the things that we run through and transfer into these other departments for reconciliation. The increase in safety and perception of safety as well is very important to us, as is the improve the customer service and communication plan. They all really wrap up. It's one of those things that comes in as an all-inclusive effort. It's not like you peel one off, work on another. These things all are tangible because most often we're the first touch point for unified government services. So we have to be very mindful about how we represent and what we're trying to collect at that data front end. So with that being said, I'm going to move to that next slide there too. This is an overall snapshot really of some of the customer service goals that we've been working on since inception of 311. It's been going for well over a decade, and we're actually working in our 12th year right now. So the to provide a single point of contact through mobile, web, and also telephone and email is critical, because there's a lot of different people that like to try to access things different ways, and you can see that in the numbers, and it just makes it easier for the constituents to reach out to basically get into the front end of the unified government services in any way they deem amenable. The other thing is providing an impeccable service at the front end of that. I call that the point of initial collection, by providing contact and issue continuity. And that issue continuity piece is something that we're conveying now. It's important to our staff that the continuity of data that comes in. You'll often hear stories that someone's been transferred 3 or 4 times, and now, when am I ever going to get to the right person? Well, 311 was born to resolve that. And in doing so, we're putting a lot of things together in the workflow cycle now that allows us to capture that data, whether it be through our, our voice response system where someone comes in and diverts and pushes a button. We're working on some things we're going to talk about a little further in this presentation, but that would go, say, to municipal court, to the front end where their teleserve people are going to answer right off the gate instead of waiting in a line for 311 just to answer, just to transfer. So the ability to quickly transfer some of these things out and to triage that rather than have people sitting in a line just to do the same thing, very beneficial. But at the same time, you want to have that information that once they call in or once they speak to that first person, it gets captured on the wire somewhere. And in doing that, we maintain that continuity. So if someone was to set in a dashboard somewhere trying to get into, say, municipal court, and then based on time, it rolled back over to 311, we wouldn't have to go through the series of questions again. Who are you? What is this? What are you asking for? It's already there. It shows up. So that continuity is very, very important. Obviously, the diversion of non-emergency calls has always been at the forefront of this. We take a lot of non-emergency requests. It seems like the abandoned vehicles probably rise at the highest point for that for police emergency service, non-emergency services. And then we also try to prepare data reports that allows us to basically help improve operations at the ground level and also at the all the way through legislation, whether it's executive staff here, whether it's working on budget, or whether it's working on operations in the field like waste management things. We're directly tied to them now. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well, but that's a great resource for discussing how data really does work at that tangible operations end. Creating real-time service requests to municipal court, waste management, et cetera. Once again, those are big operations. We receive a lot of calls. We're going to show some of the numbers that show what we receive in those areas, but they constantly are working hand in hand with us. We are directly tied to both those first two, municipal court and waste management, right now with the issuance of licenses through our dynamic system, which allows them to respond to service requests in real time instead of waiting for a report to come out of 311. And at their operations level, they can see when that request is made. And then the establishment of a closed loop communication, which includes automated response or receipt and closure notifications. And what that does is, I mean, I can tell you some real nightmares, and I know you've all heard this from your constituents, is once I call there, what happens? Where does it go? Was it received? You know, those types of things for receipt and closure are very important. We will even further down the road, sometime hopefully in 19 or maybe early 2020, get that mid-level step in there which talks about current status. But right now we can actually issue receipt and closure notifications if we have a contact resource for you by email or anything else. So the other one, as Alan alluded to, was meeting residents on the go with a mobile app. Now the mobile app's growing. We're going to show some numbers here as well. It's very impressive. I think we are showing that people are getting used to it. Now they understand it a little bit better, but some of those numbers that they're pushing through us are going straight directly to the resources. So we also provide notifications. We're working closely with the mobile app provider, Pay It, right now to put out things if we have issues, disruptions in service, things of that nature. I think the Martin Luther King Day would be a good example for trash. Anyone that's registered in our database, we would be able to push an automated notification to them, letting them know that, you know, if they decided to work, which they did on that particular day in lieu of taking off because we were hit, seasonally speaking, with a lot of closures on waste management because their trucks were unable to get into the areas. But that's a good outbound notification that's proactive. That's something that keeps everybody informed. Utilization of a single platform for UG activities through 301 payments, driver's license renewals, et cetera. It needs to be a one-stop shop. I mean, this is something that really needs to be said. I think the UG's got the right idea. You don't need a bunch of mobile apps out on the street. You really only need a couple, all things pay and then all things request. And that's where that takes care of both sides of those. So moving to that next slide, this is the call totals we're referencing here is that we're continuing to climb again. We're at almost 131,000. Municipal court seems to be our biggest participant, still at 31. They've been as high as 43 and 44 in the past. Last year they hovered around 37 or 38. The general classification still comes in. I'll talk a little bit in a minute about what that represents. The district court's still a big population, as is Treasury, Public Works, et cetera, on down through those numbers. But when you look back and say, out of 130,000 calls, what does that represent? Well, those are real-time contacts that come through that we connect to real live people. You know, sometimes it's just a transfer, and that's where 311 shines. You've got a couple of different things. You're either transferring requests, answering information, or you are actually putting in a service request. The service requests go out to your public works of the world, your neighborhood resource people, And those are really big, and those are the ones that really you need to track more so, because the others are kind of real-time closure. We can answer a lot of those right there on the first call resolution, where someone calls in and says, I need to speak to Treasury, and here's why. We can get them straight to the right person instead of trying to search around and go through a general number. We get to somebody's desktop. As part of that dissection in general, that classification, courtesy calls represented 6.7%. And the district attorney was 5%, register of deeds was 3.3, and then police non-emergency was 3, and then on down through the other things. And what that really represents, it's important. You see a list of the highest players here on the list, but the general classification is very important, because you can take that standard deviation and go out to the right. And once you get into those general classifications, those are things that we don't have attributes necessarily written for. And when I say that, that means we don't have a classification in our client-facing screen, which is something our customer service reps see every day that they can pick an exact title for. But what we do is we go out there and we have free-form text that allows our customer service reps to write into those fields. So we examine that as we move forward. And in the future, something we see that's a commonality, or if there's a trend being set, needs to rise to the level of something that needs to come on as what we call an attribute or just a general listing for a heading, then we add it to our form. So those numbers are big. 130,000 keeps continuously growing. In the last 24 months, I just ran some numbers here. We've had an increase in 18%. Sorry, thanks, Alan. 18% call increase just in the last 24 months. Now, that's very interesting. And I'd like to say, when you think you put a mobile app out on the street, you start to see some demographics, who's going to use this, who's going to use that, and maybe calls might drop, and that's not been the case. We've seen an influx in both, in the My WICO app as well as call volume, and that is extremely important, because people, we're saturating the community now, and they're learning how to use what we do. There's a lot of good things that are being said on the street, and we take pride in that. But as you see both columns grow, you know that the necessity's there, and that we have to put our information behind what we say. If we tell you to contact us and we're going to solve your problem, that's exactly what we need to do, because it shouldn't be the constituents' responsibility to bird dog this thing and have to follow it all the way through. The first quarter of 2018, 301 provided software, once again, to municipal court to utilize our dynamic system, which is basically us connecting to them with our software instead of us issuing a telephone call or an email to them. Now we've issued licenses to municipal courts staff, to where they see the ticket come in immediately. What that allows us to do is get the information in, because 99.9% of these are very simple requests for things that they just need, it could take a day or so to get back to. We can answer about 3/4 of those. If someone's lost their ticket and has to look into Regis to see, what day they're on the docket, we can solve all that. But that 25 percentile, we're issuing now to them directly by tickets. So through the filter, they will only see what goes to municipal court. They won't see everything else that's in 311, so it doesn't busy up their screen. But it allows them to go straight to that and close that. And right now, they have a 100% closure rate. So it's pretty impressive that they're closing things within a day, within 24 hours. There are some that takes a walk or two down to dead storage to find some old tickets and things like that. But for the majority, they're right at that 100 percentile. So that's worked very well. The issuance of licenses has worked very well in real time to get those services out there. Talking about the same thing with waste management, and this is a very sensitive subject for everybody here. Looking at that, we had conversations with them as John Blessing and their staff, who've done an amazing job at trying to work on this reroute, which actually started today. They were working, just hand and fist together to try to get this thing together. But I talked to John. I said, why don't we issue licenses, or basically give you licenses to view things in real time? And what has happened is a true transformation in service. What that allows us to do is issue, if someone says, hey, my trash was missed, or this is what's going on, just a general refuse or recycling request, it allows us to put a ticket in their box immediately. So at their dashboard level now, they see it. In the past, it used to take a day. And if you're on a Monday and you call us and say my trash was missed, and we issue a ticket and it comes out on Tuesday, guess what they're doing? Tuesday's routes. So they were going out trying to reestablish everything for Monday, taking time. That doesn't happen anymore. This is real time. Catch them while they're in the neighborhood. So they're actually resolving things very well right now. I don't think the complaints have gone down, because we've had a tough winter. There's been a lot of shutdown days in waste management, so the numbers seem relatively comparable to last year's. But I will tell you this, they're at 100% closure rate, and that is very good. Now, that's just good government service working with vendors, and I can tell you that for sure, because that's a very easy solution, but it also gets real-time information into the hands of the service provider. And when we're asking them to do something for us, and they can see it there. And our staff is very, very good at what they do in putting the information together and allowing them to either go out and triage whether that's a true miss or if it was something there, say hazardous waste, something that wasn't collectible. They'll write back and they will close that. Luke watches it very closely. We're working hand in hand. Today was a good example of that. Working with the new reroute today, and I think things worked out really, really well. So the last thing here on this page before we turn, we do have 4 quarterly users groups that we establish, and that's with our power user base. We will sit down and have a round table that lasts anywhere from 1 or 2 hours, and we do that quarterly for us being 311 to find out how we can perform better for the power players. And we ask everybody to bring their information in and to speak to us directly. We put up a lot of different things talking about what we're doing. Here's what's coming down the pipe. Is there anything we need to change? Because the last thing we want to do is think that we're all knowing and telling everybody what they need to do. We're listening and we're changing things dynamically as people are requesting. Next couple slides are going to show graphically some of the things we're talking about. This is the refuge tracking that we had in 2018, where you can see 2,121 were trash related, and recycling was 670. Looking across that monthly barcode down at the bottom, you don't see a grand deviation there. You see a little bit of information surge, I guess, request surge in those latter summer months, but some of that has to do with storms, things like that. You will get a lot of calls where people are asking, hey, can I cut these things up? Will Waste Management take my tree limbs if I meet these? And some of that's just what it is. And then towards December, once again, with some of the weather, I think it hit us a little bit and increased that as well. This next one here is just basically a snapshot showing you some of the density population of those types of requests. It's interesting, obviously north of the river and east of 78th Street with the density just in housing, you'll see that obviously there's a lot more misses down there, but there's a huge saturation across the community with waste management calls right now. And hopefully this reroute that they're working on and have been working on for quite some time, thank goodness to our I mean, we got to give our guys in Public Works a hand as well, because it's been a UG effort across many departments and divisions, as with waste management, but hopefully this takes care of some of that there. But that tells you there's a problem that's community-wide. Moving in here, talking about streetlight outage is another way to exemplify what we do. Unfortunately, we're not connected yet to BPU, but we do have Jeremy Ash working directly with us. Luke works hand in hand with him on a daily basis. We send reports for this. It shows you the bandwidth is pretty consistent through there. We do have a significant number of streetlight outages that they get called in through 311. We've got a report that we issue to BPU, and they typically go out and take care of that in real-time fashion. It usually takes them a day or so. Sometimes they have to put on a weekly rotation, but they will respond back with receipt. And if there's any issues, then they respond back. We assume that once those are out there that they're done, but we're in the future hopefully going to be connected to some of their front-end services, which will allow us to check that off. So I think that's very important too. But streetlight outage, as you can see here, is also saturated across the area. I mean, obviously there's more streetlights downtown by lineal foot. You can see the density still there, but you can also see the population at large is countywide. So the good thing is we do have a way to report that when there is a poll number that's available. We ask for that, which allows them to go straight to their index and look it up and go out there and take care of it. Now we're into the MyWICO mobile app services once again here, talking about what are the types of things that people are interested in. Well, obviously paying their property tax, reporting things to us via the 301 services and attaching photos, which helps a lot. That's not just for any one particular agency, but our Public Works staff, as an example, is if they can see it before they get there, they really know. And a lot of times people don't really know. They'll say, I'm not real sure if it's not geocoded correctly or if it's this or that, but if Public Works has a picture, they can pretty much tell what they're looking at before they get there. It helps solve a lot of things. Vehicle renewals, obviously new dashboard experience, which helps clean up the front end and make this more friendly. So it's a new look. The enhanced payment services are right behind that. Alan spoke about probably in your previous meeting with some of the treasury stuff. Account management and digital profiles and wallets for the actual constituent, which allows them to come in and check historical things that they've submitted before, or even look at their digital profile and do one-touch, sign-ons, things like that, and even like a wallet pay feature, so you can just go straight to your stored information and pay right there, in immediacy. Okay, let's see here. Here's some of your MyWICO submissions right here as well. Interestingly, the request versus report type it's people get confused sometimes. They try to do one or the other, but we take them all. Requests are pretty simple. How do I get to Treasury? How do I get to the appraiser's office? Things of that. We're working at the front end of this piece as well with some of the pay it staff to put in the FAQs or most common numbers that are actually dialed to. So once again, if someone just needs to go to Treasury, if somebody needs to go to municipal court, why can't they just have the number directly on an automated pop-up on their phone, go straight to it? It doesn't mean we'll lose count of that because pay it's keeping track of that. So if someone opts to go there first, it does two things. We track that, and we also use that in our year-end numbering to look at what's happening. And then they also allow us, basically to take care of that. I mean, so it gets straight to the person, but it also frees up our phone lines. So why have someone sitting in the queue when you've got 20 lines and at that point it's starting to count down, telling you, hey, you got another 8 minutes to wait or whatever? Free up the lines for the actual requests that really need to be sitting in the queues. So that's an interesting point, as you can see, the usage there. But I think this next slide that Alan put together here is really important. You look at this here, you see the coloration in some of this separate. You're talking about almost 2,000 MyWICO submissions, and you look in there and you see trash collection, minor potholes. All those things are pretty understandable. I mean, then you look at the code violations and you see how that spikes. I mean, that tells you there's interest in the neighborhoods for people wanting to live in those livable neighborhoods, to make them safe, to make them pretty, to have something to be proud of. But you also look over here on the right side in code violations and you look at what was called in as far as anonymity goes, and it spikes way through the roof. I mean, what a surprise that people are calling on their neighbors and they don't want to tell who they are. So I don't think that's any big surprise there. But it does show that there's a lot of usage in that across the board. It shows the commonalities and some of the things that they're calling for, like, once again, street lights and municipal courts, no removal, parks and recreation. I think the more integrated parks gets, as Alan's working on right now with checking out, availability of shelters and payment plans and things like that. Some of this front end stuff here is going to go straight through the app, but if it comes to us, we'll be connected with that too, which is a good thing. So we'll be able to see in real time how that happens.
Just add on that one too, just for everybody who's watching on TV, that you can submit anonymously. It's your option to submit anonymously or to submit your information on any of these requests. And you can, with an anonymous request, you can also submit pictures along with that. So again, if there's a code violation or something like that, a vehicle issue, you can submit that anonymously and it would be routed to the appropriate department.
Definitely. Thanks, Alan. Lastly, kind of as a wrap up here, talking about some of the enhancements we're working on. We're continuously in a dynamic, mobile, let's push forward, move, and improve type of mindset in 311, as is the government. I mean, that's what we need to do. Russ never sleeps, neither do we. We sit there continuously looking for ways to improve because we know stagnicity is a certain death in some of these things, because you're going to get chastised across the board for just about what, the one time you don't do something, but 99% of the time when you do, you're going to look bad, and we don't want to be that. We want to be 100% of the time. So we continue to work forward. Move forward. It's about customer experience. Customer service is a subset of customer experience, and I always liken it to if someone comes to City Hall, and asks for, to pick up a document, they come to see whoever, but as they're walking in, they don't have any signage, or they had a tough time trying to park, or they got attitude, or just whatever. Somebody just wasn't that helpful, and they actually got what they came to retrieve, but then they walk away. The customer experience is terrible. The customer, they got customer service, they got served what they needed, but at the end of the day, are they going to come back? Probably not, because the experience was actually appalling. And that's what we don't want to be. 311 wants to be the face and the voice and the first hello. We want to be that doorstep that's welcoming, and we also want to make sure that we are actually working on things that matter to them and finding the best solutions to do that, and to find the best, lowest cost to do that with integrated services and leveraging capital forward. So when we invest in something as a platform, we look to keep that money moving forward. We don't just throw things out there and hope that that's the best one. We research it, we go out, we build it, we test it, and then we put it in production, and we're doing that right now. And some of the things we're working on is the new Microsoft Dynamics Skype phones, which will allow us to basically look for at the console level, if we're trying to actually transfer a call, let's say to a municipal court or to someone in the streets, we can see if they're available. We build work groups of people in those areas that we can show green lights when they're there, red lights when they're busy, neutral, etc. So it's very integrated, but it's also very powerful, allows us to save time. Skype Pop is just a fancy way of saying let's take data when someone calls in on caller ID or any historical information we've got from mass data that exists in unified government systems and places it into that, what we consider our client-facing form for our customer service reps, which would auto-populate everything, Brett A. Deichler, that I've ever done here. It could be paying a ticket. It could be requesting something on parks, anything. It has a roster historically, everything. So SkyPop is another way of integrating the telephone across into the dynamic system. We had that actually when I first developed this 11 years ago. We actually built that through a whole bunch of techie stuff I won't bore you with, but it worked real well. Now that we're in the cloud, we're just working to get our way back into the cloud, but we're taking an on-premise telephone that exists as a legacy asset and pushing it into the cloud so they can actually save everybody time and you don't have to reiterate all that information. Talking about contact center management software, Inch-House Interactive Solutions is a vendor. I look at it as an umbrella. It allows us to take management tools and to cascade that over the top of everything we do. Good example was what I used earlier talking about. Someone comes in at the front end, push 1 for municipal court. Let's say it goes there, dashboard's open. They take that. Number 2 comes in, they want to take the same thing. Now they're busy. It grabs their information, rolls it back to us. We don't have to ask for it again. Inch-House already grabs what they're looking for. So it saves everybody time. Integrated solutions is a very good thing. We're working, viciously across the sectors to try to make this thing work really well. And it takes a little bit of time, but at the end of it, it's really something that's a powerful tool because it builds a baseline for all of our operations to integrate into and share that data. We are awaiting the upgrade for Excella. Once that happens, we will issue licenses, things of that nature. That's going to be a little bit different on some of those licensing things. We need to work with Greg and his group really closely on that, but there will be a closed loop integration feature built there. They're in the case management business. We need to watch what we call that technical handshake. What kind of data are we giving to them at the time of receipt and how that comes back so the constituent can log back in and look at that loop to see where it's at in the system. We are testing push notifications once again with the Pay It people for MyWICO to allow us to be proactive. And then we are setting up municipal court payments, obviously, with integration of MyWICO and Regis and some of those other things we talked about earlier. It allows us to have more of that one-stop shop feel. But that is the long, short of what we did in 2018. Things are looking well. I think waste management, municipal court, some of these other things on the Pay It side are vast improvements from where we've been. We're getting nothing but good reviews downstairs in some of that. Once we start kicking reports out to other agents, parts of the organization, we'll see some refinements there too. And I think next year you're going to see a bigger, bolder statement. Some of that pie chart's going to represent a different demographic, but we're working and playing well with others right now. And I think that's a very good thing.
I'll add quickly on the municipal court. So we're actively working with the municipal court's vendor, Regis, to implement Pay It and Regis, which is already active and live in St. Louis. We will later this spring have that set up so people can pay their tickets, can do their sort of basic court business through the MyWICO app, which from the earlier slide, 40,000 of the 130,000 calls are municipal court related, has the potential to significantly address some of the needs of people who are calling in, as well as also through the notifications remind people, by the way, you have a court appointment tomorrow. So also try and support the activities of municipal court.
Commissioner Bynum.
Thanks. Mr. Deichler, on the 2,700, almost 2,800 trash calls that came in through 311. You may have told us and I just missed it, but are those counted in the Public Works count in your chart of what falls where?
Let me double check.
So out of 10,000 calls that were Public Works,
They are.
the 2,800 are captured in there.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And so it's just an interesting observation. 130,000 calls over the year, 2,800 of which were trash related. I mean, for us, it just seems like we were constantly dealing with a trash complaint. We thought it was 90%. We thought it was 90%. Turns out it's 2%.
Yeah.
Your total phone calls.
And it's such a countywide service. I mean, it's so big.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
so
yeah.
visible.
It's
that
not a small
I'm sure that all the commissioners get phone calls continuously about it because it's never ending. And I mean, there's just so much going on that you don't see that shows up and that you don't get called on. But 301 is a very busy place, and waste management has had issues, but I think that's on the upward climb.
I just thought that was interesting, and I was just wanting to make sure which category it was being tracked in.
You are correct. Commissioner Kane?
Commissioner Kane?
Well, I appreciate 311, but I don't appreciate waste management. And I would have thought that number was higher because I know I've had over 150 calls, and I get tired of calling them. I got the regional manager's cell phone, and I don't think they're anywhere near where they need to be, and I think that we need to kick them along a little bit and give them some words of encouragement. If you want, I'll go with you and I can do the talking. But they need to improve their work because we're paying them for it.
Absolutely, and I'll pick you up downstairs, Commissioner, we can head out.
I'm in.
I agree. I do think it's important to remember there's one critical piece here too. Now, out of that 2,800, before we issue the licenses, they have a call center too, and people would call them. We'd have no way of tracking that. So we even have people, we encourage everybody to call 311 because it allows us to get in real time now. We've trained waste management staff to do the same thing we do if they get it. So now you'll see, part of that representation of 2,800 would represent them getting calls and putting it in, but not a large percentage. So the majority throughout the year of what waste management probably did, which could be easily doubled here probably, they did not put in because they didn't have the licenses yet. We issued these, I mean, it is what it is, but now that we've got this better solution in hand, anything they put in or if they get, there's no reason to call us, just to have us do it when they can issue it right there and we see it. We just want to create 2 tickets that we can see that real thing. They send it out and they do it. But we tell them to encourage people to call 311 when you can, and we take that front end. So, but it is an interesting point. There's definitely more numbers here than what's shown right now. Just listen, we've got a ton of calls.
Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you. I was just jotting down some notes here about how do you define the handle rate? Does that mean it's all the way closed? Does that speak to this closed loop integration that you're striving for all the way around, or what's the context for that?
Let me make sure I understand your question. You're asking about the closed loop integration and how does that basically function and what do we consider closed?
Right. And well,
different, which was you asked about the handle rate, the call handle rate.
Yeah, and I want to know, are those interrelated or are they completely separate?
Called handled rate is the ability of our staff to handle calls that are coming in, and that's capacity. That means if we've gone through where we promoted a person inside the organization, and rightfully so, and I mean that's what we do. But she was one of our better top performers. She was very, very good at what she did. And part of that, we try to stay at 90%. Now, I've read a lot of studies where we were shooting for 95. And, survey says that basically shoot for 90 because if you're trying to shoot for 95, you're on the phone too long. You can get what you need in 90 if you do it the right way and free up for another call. The calls handled rate is across the board, all things coming into 311. Now, if there's lines are all busy, all of them are sitting there, someone says, I'm not going to wait another couple minutes, it's DQ. It counts against us. Sure. So you'll see that. This thing has always been above 90% for a long time. We were hovering around 92, 93 consistently, and it was difficult, but it wasn't impossible. Now with one less staff person, and we're in the process of actually refilling that. We thought we had it filled a couple weeks ago, but it didn't happen that way. So hopefully over the next 6 weeks we'll get that extra person and you'll see that come back to 90. But it basically is your ability to answer the incoming calls at that 90 percentile.
So I'm going to send an email to you, Brett. It just so happens that I got a 311 call this weekend, or last week rather, with regard to the snow removal. And she said, I've called 311, I've followed up, and this, that, and the other. I finally went out and checked for myself, and it wasn't just her street, it was about probably a 6-block square radius that had not been done. And so when she called 311, she didn't get any response. So then she called again, and they gave her the number to the streets department, and the streets department said we never got anything from 311. So my question really is, are we ramping up during those times in certain areas that we know we're going to be getting those calls? I didn't have time to follow through to see how it processed. I just got on the line and started doing what we as commissioners are called to do to get her streets cleaned off. And so I want to send this to you kind of as a case study, so maybe you can respond back to me and let me.
Absolutely, we'll take care of that. We'll look at it. Yeah, and we do. It's interesting, Commissioner, when there's an event, if there's a storm or something that goes on like that, 99% of your calls are coming in for the same thing at that point. When you're going to plow my neighborhood, when you're going to take care of this, what's it going to be? Is the school's going to be open tomorrow? You're asking us everything. Some of that's courtesy, but at the same time, some of it's operational.
Right.
But we do typically, people start to concentrate on the things of trash and neighborhoods getting cleared and things like that. The call types get real centralized.
Very good.
I'll add one piece on the call handle rate. It's working with departments like municipal court to identify ways to reduce their call volume, so I understand what people are calling about, and that's part of the movement towards allowing online payments through MyWICO for municipal court, is that we want to pull that number down from 40,000 contacts to 35 or 30, and all of a sudden that frees up staff time, so that call handle rate goes up. So we using this data internally to also, as Brett identified, look at opportunities for ways to enhance the operations.
And every time I'm here, I talk about equalization, business equalization. Now I'm just referring straight to that. That would allow us in 301 operations to say, if you're taking 40,000 calls for municipal court, but now you got self-help features at the front end of it, whether it's an email that goes out that's got a hyperlink in it that allows them to do different things next time to say, check the status instead of calling us. It frees up that line. So the more self-help features we can put at the front end will allow us to operationalize and neutralize that. And I think in the past, we've looked where, I think by volume just alone, we probably needed 5 people answering all at full time, and we've held back. And the reason is you don't want to have to necessarily put in staff and then equalize and come down and find out that you really needed 4. So we're working with that. 4 seems to be our magic number, but the equalization side of business is starting to show that flat line profile that allows us to identify trends. And I think we're climbing that ladder, and someday, very, very soon, we're going to get there, and that number is going to hover at 90, and we're going to be able to just handle just about everything.
Well, I didn't start out by saying what I intended to say. I like the concept. I like what you guys are doing. I think we're moving in the right direction. So there's always things to work out as we go along, and we want to make this a much better process. So I appreciate the work that you all are doing and the information that or the effort that you're putting into this to make this a much more seamless process. So thank you for that.
Yeah, we appreciate it too, Commissioner.
I think the whole idea of the closed loop too will cut down on some of the multiple touches because people are calling back, particularly with codes, I think, because it's not always obvious whether something happened. Like your neighbor might have gotten a visit from codes, but if you weren't there to see the codes officer arrive and the problem isn't corrected the same day, then you're thinking, well, it didn't get painted, or the fence, and so there's an open period there where they have 14 days or 20 days, or however long they have to resolve the issue, and you're thinking, I don't think anything happened. Did anything happen? I don't know. Did they get a ticket yet? So they're calling back a second time to say, did anything happen or not? And if you could close the loop and at least say the ticket went out, they've got 14 days or whatever the case may be, you're going to cut back on that person making the second call.
Oh, absolutely. I agree.
I think all of those, as we make improvements, you can lower the call volume in so many different ways by directing people where they need to go in another way, or by telling them, you don't have to call back because I'm telling you right now this is what happened. So are there other questions from the commission? All right, this is an item for information only, and it was our last item of the evening. So thank you, gentlemen.
We appreciate it. Thank you for your time.